What if your exhaustion, your brain fog, your anxiety, your autoimmune symptoms, your hormonal changes, your gut issues, even your overwhelm, and the way you've stopped feeling like yourself aren't actually separate problems? What if they're all different expressions of the same story your body has been trying to tell you? Because I think that's where so many women get stuck. We spend years chasing individual symptoms when our body has been asking us to see the whole picture. Welcome back to the Whole She Rises podcast. This is episode 5 of the Why Midlife Women Feel This Way series. One thing I've noticed, whether we're talking about healthcare or social media or even conversations with friends, we've become really good at putting everything into separate boxes. Hormones, autoimmune disease, stress, mental health, sleep, gut health, inflammation, trauma, nutrition. They're treated like separate categories, separate specialists, separate appointments, separate treatment plans, but your body never separated them. Your body has always been one interconnected system. When I think back over my own journey, I can remember believing I had one problem after another. First was this autoimmune disease. Then it was chronic stress and trauma. Then came the sleep issues. Then I realized perimenopause. Then were the gut issues. Then exhaustion. Then a lot of anxiety and even rage. Then inflammation and joint pain. Every season just felt like a brand new battle. But eventually I realized I had to stop asking, which problem am I dealing with right now? Which symptom do I need to chase the answers for right now? And I started asking, what is my body trying to tell me through all of this? That question changed everything. Go with me here for a minute. Imagine walking through a garden you've spent years caring for. One day you notice the roses aren't blooming anymore. The hydrangeas begin wilting. Your herbs aren't growing. Maybe the tomato plants have stopped producing fruit. At first, it looks like every plant has its own problem. So you start treating each one separately. Maybe a little more fertilizer here, more water over there. Maybe move this plant into some shade. Maybe prune this one back. And some of those things might even help for a while. But eventually, someone looks beyond each individual plant and asks, how's the soil? How's the irrigation system working? Has the garden been getting what it needs as a whole? Because every plant is growing in the same environment, right? And once the soil is nourished, once the roots are supported, once the irrigation system is working the way it was designed, each plant has a better opportunity to flourish. Not because every problem instantly disappears, but because the entire garden is being supported in a healthier way. I think our bodies are a lot like that. We often find ourselves trying to treat every symptom as though it's growing in its own little garden. We focus on hormones over here, maybe some gut health over there, anxiety, autoimmune symptoms. We work on our sleep, maybe take some supplements for inflammation, something for fatigue, as if they're completely separate. But they aren't. They're growing in the same body. Your nervous system is communicating with your immune system. Your hormones, of course, influence your sleep. Inflammation can influence mood. Your gut communicates with your brain, and every system is constantly responding to the others. So if we only care for one plant at a time while the soil underneath remains depleted, we shouldn't be surprised when another area begins struggling. That doesn't mean you shouldn't care for each individual symptom, Of course you should. But healing often becomes more effective when we begin caring for the environment those symptoms are living in too. Maybe your body isn't a collection of broken plants. Maybe it's one garden doing its very best to grow in the environment it's been given. It doesn't need you to choose between caring for your hormones, your gut, your immune system, or your mental health. It needs you to remember they're all growing in the same garden. Now, I want to be really careful here. I'm not saying every disease has one cause. I'm not saying hormones don't matter. I'm not saying immune diseases aren't real. I'm not saying inflammation isn't real. I've experienced all of those. And I'm definitely not saying stress causes everything. What I am saying is that our nervous system, our immune system, our endocrine system, our digestive system, our brain, they are constantly communicating with one another. And when one system struggles long enough, the others often begin responding to that too. I think this is one reason so many women feel like they're failing, because they're trying really hard to solve each symptom separately. I know I did. More supplements, another diet, another specialist, more blood test, another skincare routine, another exercise program, another sleep hack. And while many of those things absolutely have value, they don't often address why your body has become so overwhelmed in the first place. The biggest shift in my healing wasn't finding one magical supplement or one type of hormone therapy or one medication or diagnosis. It was realizing my body wasn't working against me. It was trying really hard to protect me. That completely changed the way I approached my healing. Instead of fighting my body, fighting the symptoms, I started partnering with it. And that's exactly where we're going in the next series. We're going to start connecting those dots. We're going to talk about chronic stress and inflammation. We're going to talk about the nervous system, autoimmune disease, why flares happen and why gut symptoms often show up, why overfunctioning affects the body, and why so many women have been told that they're dealing with separate problems when there may be a much bigger picture connecting them all. Not because there's one simple answer, but because understanding how these symptoms work together changes how we care for ourselves. If there's one thing that I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. You are not a collection of disconnected symptoms or broken systems. You are just a whole person. Your body isn't randomly falling apart. It's responding, it's adapting and communicating, and it's asking to be understood, maybe differently than you've ever understood it before. And I truly believe that when we begin looking at the whole picture instead of isolated pieces, that's where lasting healing starts to feel possible again. If this episode helped you see your health in a new way, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me for what's coming next. Over the past several weeks, we've talked about exhaustion, burnout, rage, identity, and why self-care alone often isn't enough. But now it's time we start connecting those dots. In our next series, we'll explore how these systems influence one another and why understanding those connections can completely change the way you think about your symptoms and your healing. And at the end of this series, I'm going to share a free resource that will help you to put all of these pieces together for yourself. And if you know another woman who's been saying, I just don't feel like myself anymore, would you consider sharing this episode with her? Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is helping them realize they're not alone. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a comment and let me know what resonated with you most. It really does help other women find these conversations and feel less alone. It reminds them that what they're experiencing is real and that there is hope. Until next time, remember, your body isn't working against you. It's just communicating with you. And when we begin listening to the whole story instead of just the individual symptoms, that's where healing can begin. I'll see you in the next episode. Take a breath, trust your body, and let's rise together.